Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, The Halo Builder. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make the perfect airplane every single time you build one. Now, for airplane, by airplane I mean if you're making a space shuttle, an SSTO, a landing craft for like Eve or Lathe or something that has an atmosphere. Duna could also work, but that's a bit tricky because you need giant wings because of its low atmosphere, or if you want to just make an airplane to fly around in on Kerbin. Now, the first part of any airplane is to get the control cabin or the cockpit. Now, if you go into command control and you scroll down, there is a place called cockpit. These are all the places that have a control system in them so you can fly your plane from here. So there are a few versions. So there is the Raven, the Peregrine, the Osprey, the Phoenix, and the Condor. The Condor is the one that you'd be using for a space shuttle, as you can see. The Peregrine is one you'd be using to put behind the Raven, or if you wanted to make like a MiG recreation. So if you take this one and then you go and then you get this intake, you would have something of an early fighter jet. Now let's focus now that design isn't necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing, however it is really cool, but let's focus on something a bit easier to make right now for your first plane. So what you want to do is you want to pick something simple like the Raven or the Phoenix for your first plane. Let's go with the Phoenix, as that is a bit easier to make because it's a bit bigger and it will be easier to fly. So now what you want to do after choosing your cockpit is choose if you want to add crew space or not. Now you can do this by adding a second cockpit like this one had. This is two-seater, this is also two-seater. But if you don't like how this goes up and over, you can go down into payload, scroll down, and you can find crew cabins. Crew cabins are what they sound like. They're just spaces where you can keep crew in. So let's just add this one for now because it is the one that matches this fuselage. So after you have added your crew space, whether you have or not, you should decide if you want to make this an SSTO or not. Now, an SSTO is a plane that flies from the runway to space and then back down. Now, if you're making an SSTO, you're probably going to make it to carry cargo, or you're making it as like a shuttle to a space station that you have built. Now, to do that, you go into coupling and decide if you want to add one of these. These are docking ports, inline docking ports for planes, and these are really useful because they don't have to be super ugly, like, I don't know, taking one of these and then just slapping it on like that. I don't know about you, but one of these inline ones definitely seems to be a lot nicer than one of the ones just slapped on the middle. Now, we are not making an SSTO right now, so I'm going to take this off. And just keep in mind that, yes, there is one for the cylindrical shaped planes as well. So after you have added or not added your docking port, you probably want to go back into payload and look at cargo bays if you're making an SSTO, or if you're making, I don't know, like a cargo plane for carrying things around on Kerbin, or if you're making one for like Lathe and you want to keep it there. So what you want to do is take one of these cargo bays out of the payload section, and all these do is they open up like this, and then you can store stuff in here. If you wanted to store stuff in there, you would want to go back into, after you've added your payload bay, you would want to go back into coupling, take either the small docking port, like the really small one, or the large one. I would say go for the large one as it has more versatility, and just plop it down right here. And then that way you can always build, I don't know, like a satellite. You go into here, and then you can build your satellite out here. And you can there are, keep in mind that there are tons of different sizes, so you can have like small ones, long ones, short ones. So yeah, that is what's really cool. Now, I'm going to keep it really simple for this plane and not add any cargo bays. Now, I am making a video where I'm making a stackable shuttle. I will tell you what that is. If you watch my Min-Miss video, actually, I explain a bit more about what I want to do with the stackable shuttle video, but that is scheduled to come out after this one, so stay tuned. And then, so after you have chosen or added your crew space and your docking port or your payload area, it is now time to think about fuel. Now, airplanes, since they fly through the air, obviously, can have a multitude of different fuel types. They can actually use all the fuel types, well, besides probably xenon, but you can either choose from methalox, just methane, xenon, and hydrogen. Monopropellant is not for flying with. But basically what methalox is it's methane with oxygen. So it's liquid fuel with oxygen built in. This is really useful if you're making a SSTO. You need the oxidized fuel or fuel with oxidizer in it to fly in space, as there is no oxygen and air in space. So if you were making an SSTO, you'd go for these ones. Now, I will have a more in-depth how to make an SSTO guide. This is a general how to make airplanes guide, though it does apply to SSTOs as well. So you would take one of these Methalox ones and then just place them. And they obviously have them in the right sizes, as you can see. It fits my fuselage perfectly. Now what we want to do though is look at these methane fuel tanks. Methane is just liquid fuel, which is best if you want to keep your plane within the atmosphere. Or what I would do if I were making an SSTO, I would make the center stage out of oxidizer, so I'd use the Methalox fuel tanks, and then the outside I would add a few of these rounded methane tanks like this, and then that would allow me to have both the efficiency of just methane fuel power and then oxidizer when I'm in the space outside of the atmospheric reaches. So let's just take one of these fuel tanks, and then since we don't want to make it too long, I'm actually gonna go back and add I don't know, like a small cargo bay, or I'll actually just copy this and then like that, boom, boom. Okay, so then now what we want to do is choose whether we want one engine or two engines. Now, this game doesn't have failures per se like you do in the real world, where your engine might just go out for no apparent reason. So there's no real benefit to two engines other than thrust. It will be easier to fly with two engines, which is why I'm going to choose two engines. Now what I'm gonna do is, now that we've finished our main body, it's time to choose our engines. Now there are a few different types of engines that you can use. Obviously, okay, now there are multiple engines that you can use. If you scroll down in the engines tab, you will find the jet engines, which is probably where you're going to be spending most of your time while building airplanes. However, be sure to note that if you're looking for the Rapier engine, which is the one that can switch between air breathing and non-air breathing mode, so it works both in space and in the atmosphere, it is in the Methalox, which I think it should be in the jet engines because I think it would be easier to find, but it is where it is. So yeah, this is the Rapier. We're not going to use this though because we are not going to space right now. So there is, as with any engine, there are a few tradebacks. Like Goliath is really big, but it has a ton of thrust. This is probably one you're going to use for big airplanes. Now what? So the Wheelsy, or the Weasley and the Whittle are, the Whittle's really small and the Wheelsy is really small as well, or it's normal size, but these two are super efficient. These two are like jet engines in terms of like they use them on fighter planes. They have afterburners, and so they are pretty powerful. I'm going to go with the Wheelsy just because let's just make this a long range plane, because why not? Okay, so now we have added our 2 engines to the back. It is time to start thinking about adding the wings, and this is the most important part and the place where most people mess up, because they do it wrong and then their planes flip. They're hard to control, and with the new mechanic where you can get whatever wing size you want and shape, it is really hard to make this to make a perfect plane. However, you will be able to. I will show you how to. The first thing you need to do is go down here to the bottom of your screen and then turn on your center of mass and your center of pressure. Now you need to go into aerodynamics and then find the wings. So the evolution wing is obviously way too big for our purposes, but we will go with the small wing. Now you can change the size of the wings, so don't be worried. Try to place it a bit back to begin with. So like let's try right here, or let's try it like try to place it middle back. So like right here, and then you see how this arrow is now appeared. This is your center of lift or center of pressure arrow. And basically what it does is it shows you where your center of lift is. Now this is very, very important when you're making your wings. Make sure that your center of pressure or center of lift is directly or as close to your center of mass as possible, because this will make your craft very, very stable in the air and make it really easy to fly. Okay, so now that we can go press on this little wrench here. We press on the wrench, we can now make the wings how we want them to. We're going to turn this off for now. Now the first thing I would suggest is to go into the root thickness and then make it slightly, root thickness, and make it slightly bigger. And then I would go into the 2 menu. I'll go into here, 2 menu, and then move it down a bit. And then press shift to get more movable places. And make it so that it is the same thickness as your fuselage. Like if you're making it out of these, I like the MK2s, make sure that your wing root thickness is like from this edge to this edge. So it's encompasses, as you can see, the entirety of my this little like flat place that is on the MK2s. If you're on the MK1s, which is the round ones, this isn't really a concern. Make your thickness, don't make it too thin and don't make it too thick, because if it's too thick, it'll be too heavy. If it's too thin, it'll be too flimsy. So you want to make it in the middle. That is why I really like making it out of the MK2s, because you just make it the thickness of this flat part, this flat rectangular part, and then you know what you need to do. Okay, so now that we have these, we can go into things like root length. This changes the length of the wing. You want to make it look, because not everything is about efficiency. You want to make things look good. So now that we have our length set, we probably want to make our wingspan a bit more, and then we can change our wing angle. So you can make really crazy ones like this, or really crazy ones like this, but for now, if you want to make an easy plane, just make it so that it's makes a roughly 90-degree angle. So like here, as you can see where it meets the fuselage here, it's a 90-degree angle. And the wing length, let's just open our center of pressure and our center of mass. Yep, so that seems pretty good, where our center of pressure is really close to the center of mass. I mean, it's not perfect, but it is as good as it will probably get. Now, one thing you can do is you can take this, you can move your wings back, but then you will move your center of pressure back, and then to get over this, you can go in and take the stabilizers, also known as canards, and then put them up here, and then you can move them forward quite a bit. So like you can move them here and then move them in, and then your center of pressure is back to where you want it to be. There you go. Yeah, so now it's back to, however, we're not going to do that because, I mean, it looks good, but, I mean, I don't really want to do that right now, so we are just going to move this back to where it is in the center, because it doesn't look too bad. Okay, so there we go. We have that. Now if we go back into the editing for the wing, one thing you can do is go to tip length, make your tip thickness, or your you don't really want to touch the tip angle because it will mess things up. I mean, if you do, it will just make it make the curve different, so it doesn't really matter. And then tip length. Now this is important. This makes wings look different. So you can go, okay, and now you can see the tip angle. As you can see, that is what the tip angle does. You want to make it as 90 degrees as possible for your easy plane. And then you want to make it so this seems good here, and then we can make our tip angle, yeah, we're just going to keep it at 90 degrees. It's not the most efficient, but it's the easiest to do. And now what you want to do is, as you can see right now, we have giant control surfaces. I'm just going to click them off, and then I'm going to click them on just so you see where they are. And then these are way too big. As soon as you try to turn, your plane will go all over the place because they have so much control. What you want to do is go into the control surface menu. You can change the position a little bit. This moves it from left to right. Really is up to preference. This is more for looks. Now the important thing is the span and the length. The span, you can make it slightly shorter, and then you can make the length, which changes actually the width, not the length is controlled by the span. The length of the control surface is controlled by the span, and the width is controlled by the length. It's a bit confusing, but it is what it is. So yes, you definitely don't want big ones. You want to go slightly smaller, and trust me, it will help you a lot by going slightly smaller, because you will not be flying or flopping all over the place while you have your wings open, or when you're flying on your wings. So now that we have this sorted out, one thing, because KSP2 is still in its early stages, is to go in and to add struts. Now this is really easy if you're using the MK2 and you lined it up like I told you to, because you can just go like this, boom, boom, and now your wings won't break, flex. I mean, they'll flex a little bit on the edges, but they won't fall off like they would if you didn't add these. This is just protection. And now the last thing that we have to do with the wings is add a tail. Now you go down here and you can use not tail section, because these are just cones for like MK1, so like the cylindrical ones. You can, I would generally use these stabilizers as my wings. So like I use this one, or like this one. I think I'll use this one for now, and I usually put just one. However, you can put two if you want. So what I would do here is I would just move it back and then move it down, and these don't really need to have the control surfaces adjusted, because it seems pretty good. And I know the wing is big, but it really, the tail, I mean, unless you make it big, doesn't hurt in this case. A small tail will actually hurt you. So the bigger, the better it is. Now, one thing is that if you're using jet engines, you want to make sure to add air intakes. So you go into the aerodynamics, then you scroll down until we get to the intake place. If you are using like side mounted, so like if it's on, let's just say, we take one of these and it's like this, and then your engine's here, you can go and use one of these forward facing air intakes, or if you're using like if you're using this cockpit, like there you go, this is what you would use. But since we aren't using that, we need to use different kinds of air intakes, and these are these radial air intakes, and these are really nice. Make sure you're turning on back to the aircraft symmetry mode, and the way you cycle through symmetry modes, by the way, is by pressing X on your keyboard. Then just add a bunch, however you want. Just make sure adding more again doesn't hurt, because the more air you have, the better it is. Okay, so now we have almost finished our airplane. What we need now is to add wheels. You go into landing gear for ground, and then you can choose your wheels. It really doesn't matter which ones you choose. It's really by size, which ones you like. So you can just put these here. I usually go for the large ones for this type of airplane, and then we can go for one large and then put it here. And yeah, there we go. Now, one thing you want to make sure is to line up your front wheel with your back wheel so that they are on the same level. So it's like, it would be like that. Okay, so now we have completed our plane. Make sure that you save your plane. I'm gonna name this Easy Plane. Okay, and then now what we're gonna do is we're gonna check our center of pressure and our center of mass, and there we go. It's still perfect. And so let's check our Kerbal Manager, make sure, yep, we have Jebediah, and now let's launch. Make sure you have your SAS engaged. This is really important because it will assist you while you are flying, and it will make sure that you are level and pointing in the right direction. You can fly without SAS, so like let's say you want to do some cool tricks, it's easier to fly without SAS. You would turn RCS on for that. Okay, so let's just press go, and now we are taking off. As you can see, one of these engines is turned into the wrong way. Decided to go into reverse thrust. And there you go. As you can see, I may have even made the control surfaces a bit bigger because you can see how much they're flapping around the airplane currently. So one fix to this, if you did do this, is going to Advanced Controls. If you can somehow click on it, Advanced Controls, then Authority Limiter down to like 11, and this makes them move a bit less. And one great thing, the one difference that will make is that while you are taking off, you'll have to go to a higher speed while on the ground to take off, because they won't move up as much. So there you go, you have your airplane, and as you can see, it flies perfectly well. Even if we turn SAS off, it wants to point down a little bit because our center of pressure is slightly behind. But with SAS on, there we go, perfect flight. And so that is how you make a perfect airplane. And you fly it just as you would any other rocket. Q, W, E, A, S, D. Q and E, of course, turn it like this. S and W, move it up and down. And then D, I would recommend using D on slow speeds because, like, when you're landing. Okay, so we are now about to land. When you're landing an airplane, make sure you land on the runway. If you have to go around, because the ground right now is not really forgiving for the planes. Like before, you could land on the KSC grass and you'd be fine. Now, however, you have to land on the runway because otherwise your gear will probably break. I think this is a glitch that is probably going to get fixed, but here we are landing on the runway. Again, super easy to fly because we made this plane correctly. And there we go. We have touched down. I mean, we are bouncing a little bit, but that's because the spring strength is slightly off. Okay, and there we go. A smooth touch down. There we go. As you can see, perfect. And then we're gonna press B to brake, and we brake too hard. Now we're gonna fall over. Alright, now we're gonna revert to VAB and summarize what we learned. If you're gonna take one thing away from this building tutorial, is to make sure that your center of pressure is over, or like where your center of mass is. So your center of pressure is inside, directly in the middle of where your center of mass is. This will make sure that your plane flies perfectly well. So yeah, that is the one thing to remember. Everything else is really stylistic choices. Just make sure that your center of pressure is over your center of mass. Then all your planes will fly perfectly well. And make sure that the second thing is make sure you always strut your wings to the body fuselage, just so you avoid any of the risks of them falling apart in flight. So that brings this video to a conclusion. I will have a how to make an SSTO video coming out soon. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more KSP content coming out probably weekly. I'm gonna my pace right now is increasing since I have more time. So yeah, definitely much more KSP topics and videos planned for release soon, so make sure you're subscribed. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so it would be really helpful if you did. But if you enjoyed this video, thank you so much. I hope I was helpful. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.